think the role of modern media leadership has actually changed quite substantially this year in particular. This idea of orchestration has been around forever, but I think it's become much more prevalent because of all the disparate pieces that you need to connect in order to make a good media plan or a good media strategy come to life. The biggest points in my mind are data fluency. That's just part of the remit at this point. So anytime people talk about artificial intelligence, AI inclusion, anything along those lines, it's an extension of data fluency in my mind. So I think people or leaders in general are much more versed and attuned to those kinds of environments and contracts and topics than they historically ever have needed to be.
Jason, I'd like to turn from the state of media leadership to the state of cross-media measurement. Wanted to get your sense of what does true cross-media measurement look like, in 2026, and how close is the industry to achieving actual accountability across channels?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to that. One is cross-media measurement isn't a singular device. It's not a panacea where one measurement mechanism will answer all of the questions that you need answered. So it's a measurement framework that has everything from media mix modeling to uplift analysis to encompassing to testing and experimentation. So it's a suite of tools that you should apply for different use cases. So that's one. I think the idea of accountability is an interesting one. When it depends on what you're taking accountability for. We'd like to talk a lot about outcomes, and you can't really have outcomes specifically through a media-driven lens. It has to incorporate the message. It has to incorporate the product. It has to incorporate the distribution just as much. And so when we take accountability for those things, it presumes that we're influencing those things. And sometimes we are, but sometimes we're not. And so accountability for media delivery, audience penetration, reach and frequency, things of that nature, absolutely. Those measurements are already well established and in place. But if you flip it to other accountability that we like to talk to a lot about as an industry, I don't know if you can actually truly take full accountability for that because there are so many disparate pieces and stakeholders for that kind of thing.
Well, from incorporating accountability to incorporating AI, obviously we're all well established in using AI to a certain extent, but when it comes to AI's ability to meaningfully transform media planning and activation, where are we with that? What's the state there, and where is it still maybe overhyped?
I think we are at the most nascent point of AI application, and I get asked the question all the time. What could AI do for you? And I like to reframe that question and ask back, take the A out of that question. So what can intelligence do for you would be, and that is limitless, right? So when we look at it through the lens of we can do things faster or cheaper or more efficiently, I feel like that's just the beginning stage. I like to think of AI as a creative. What can we build that hasn't been built before because the need never was there before? And those are the areas that are unexplored. Absolutely, we're gonna get faster, we're gonna get more insightful, I hope. We're gonna get more efficient in terms of our delivery, both as a operating model, as well as an output in terms of the brands that we support. But I think we're at the very early stages of what it can absolutely do for us.
Jason, what separates mature retail and commerce media strategies from experimental or siloed approaches, especially at this point?
I think the amount of data, transactional information that's available within those environments kind of separates it, but it's also the way in which it was come through. First off, it shouldn't be separated at all, in my mind. That data fluidity should manifest itself across media environments, not just be limited into one. But I think the idea of retail came in through a non-traditional advertising lens, and so it's taking some time for that to be incorporated within the modern advertising landscape.
Jason, we know CMOs are pressured in so many different ways these days. So wanted to get a sense from you what CMOs are prioritizing, or maybe should be prioritizing most right now? And how are those priorities reshaping media investment strategies?
I think most CMOs are being tasked with direct incorporation of growth. And by growth, I mean sales volume, like some sort of revenue stream. And I think that's a good and bad thing. There's a accountability that they have, and their remit has been extended accordingly. But I think there's been a short-termism reflected within that, where the acknowledgement of how brands work and how brands absolutely contribute to sales and revenue have been somewhat ignored. And part of it is our inability as an industry to quantify that better. And so it's not just the remit that's changed, it's the area that we need to improve on most meaningfully to make sure that brand still has a role in the boardroom just as much as like the creative copy.